Let's dive right in. Today, we're looking at the architectural blueprint of life itself, the fundamental building blocks that make up every single plant and animal on this planet. We're talking about the fascinating world of tissues. Seems like a weird question, right? I mean, one is a tree, stuck in the ground, covered in bark, and the other is, your hand. But believe it or not, they share a fundamental design principle. So what is that common thread? Well, the answer is tissues. And really, that's the core idea right there. A tissue is just a group of cells, a team, that all work together to do one specific job. It's all about teamwork. Whether that job is making a tree trunk strong or letting you bend your finger, it all comes down to these amazing little cellular teams. Okay, so right off the bat, life's blueprint kinda splits into two major designs. Plants, which are generally stuck in one place, need to be sturdy. So their tissues are often rigid, thanks to these strong cell walls. Animals, on the other hand, we need to move around, so our tissues are flexible and our cells don't have those stiff walls. This one difference is absolutely key to understanding everything else.
So let's start our tour by going inside a plant. We're going to explore how these incredible organisms build themselves from the ground up, literally tissue by tissue.
So think of this flowchart as our map for this part of the journey. You can see how it all splits into two main families. First, you've got meristematic tissue that's all about growth, and then you have permanent tissue, which handles all the specialized day-to-day jobs. We're going to start with those growth zones, the meristematic tissues. Think of meristematic tissues as the 24/7 construction zones of the plant. They're just packed with cells that are dividing like crazy. All new growth, whether it's the plant getting taller, wider, or popping out new leaves, it all starts right here. And this growth isn't random at all. It's super organized. You've got the apical meristems, which you find at the very tips of roots and shoots, constantly pushing the plant taller. Then you have the lateral meristems, which make the trunk or stem thicker and stronger each year. And finally, the intercalary meristems, which help with branching and growing leaves. So once these new cells are made, they can't just be generic builder cells forever, right? They have to specialize. They go through this amazing process called differentiation, where they basically pick a career and mature into a specific type of cell with a permanent job. This is how a brand new cell becomes part of a leaf or a root. And this whole process creates what we call permanent tissues. These are the grown-up tissues. They're done dividing, and now they're just focused on their assigned roles, things like support, storage, or transport. And they come in two main flavors, simple and complex. Now this is where it gets really cool, because you can see how the structure perfectly fits the job. Parenchyma has thin walls, which is great for storing food and water. Collenchyma has these thickened corners that give it flexible support, kind of like celery. You can bend it, but it doesn't just snap. And then there's sclerenchyma, which is reinforced with a tough substance called lignin, making it super hard. Think of a nutshell, or that slightly gritty texture you sometimes get when you bite into a pear? Yep, that's sclerenchyma. The other type of permanent tissue is called complex tissue. This is basically the plant's internal plumbing system. You've got the xylem, which acts like a one-way straw, pulling water and minerals up from the roots to the rest of the plant, and then there's the phloem, which is more like a two-way delivery service, moving the sugary food made in the leaves to wherever it's needed. All right, let's switch gears completely. We're leaving the plant kingdom behind and jumping into the world of animal tissues. And we're going to start with the body's first line of defense, the tissue that covers and protects pretty much everything. This is called epithelial tissue. It makes up the outer layer of your skin, sure, but it also lines all your internal organs and cavities. And depending on its job, it has a totally different shape. Thin, flat squamous cells are perfect for exchange, like in your mouth or lungs. Cube-shaped cuboidal cells give support in places like your kidneys. Tall, elongated columnar cells in your intestines are great for absorbing nutrients. And your skin? That's stratified squamous, tons of layers stacked up for maximum protection. And check this out. Here's a perfect example of specialization. Sometimes these cells get a little upgrade. In your respiratory tract, the columnar cells have these tiny little hairs on them called cilia. This transforms them into a sweeping crew, constantly pushing mucus and any trapped dust or gunk up and out of your lungs. It's just a tiny structural add-on that creates a whole new vital function. Okay, so beyond that protective shield, animal bodies are really defined by three other critical types of tissue. These are the ones that let us move, that hold our shape, and that allow us to process the world around us. These are the movers, the connectors, and the thinkers.
When we talk about muscle, the biggest thing to remember is the difference between what you can control and what you can't. Your skeletal muscles are voluntary. You decide to move your arm, and it moves. But the smooth muscles in your stomach and intestines, they're involuntary. They work automatically to digest your food. And then there's cardiac muscle, a total superstar that's only found in the heart, tirelessly and involuntarily beating for your entire life. And to wrap up the animal tissues, we have the connectors and the thinkers. Connective tissue does exactly what it sounds like. It connects everything. It's an incredibly diverse group, from liquid like your blood to solids like your bones. And finally, you have nervous tissue. This is the command center, the brain, the spinal cord, and all the nerves that make up the network that lets you think, feel, remember, and react to anything and everything. So, after that whirlwind tour through the microscopic architecture of plants and animals, let's just zoom out for a second. What's the big takeaway here? Why is understanding all this stuff so important? Well, it's because tissues are that crucial first step up from just being a single, lonely cell. They represent the very first level of organized cooperation in life, and that cooperation is what allows for the creation of organisms as complex and capable as a giant redwood tree or, well, you. Tissues are the essential bridge from the microscopic world to the world we see every day. And that really brings us to our final thought. We've seen how cells team up to form tissues that do specific jobs. So the next logical question has to be, what happens when the tissues start teaming up? What do you get when you combine epithelial, muscular, and nervous tissues all in one place? Well, that's where things get really interesting. But that's a story for another time. Thanks for joining me.